let's get going. Let's talk about Jim. Jim's been taking pictures since he was about 10. He's a retired professional speaker and trainer on taxes. He's now a photographer desperately trying to maintain his amateur status. Yes. As a volunteer photographer at Cantigny Park, moderates several groups on Flickr, teaches photography classes, and is a member of the Elgin Area Camera Club. And for this, I asked Jim to do a program for us, and he came up with this idea a few months ago. So in this webinar, Jim's going to talk about how to get the most from Instagram, Facebook, Flickr, the relative strengths and weaknesses of each platform, and how professionals use them. Jim has been using Flickr for 16 years, Facebook for over 10 years, and Instagram since 2015. So I guess without any further ado, we will let Jim share his screen and begin the presentation.
Okay, thanks, Carlos.
Thank you.
Push
if you have any questions, just put them in the chat and Jim will answer them, or I can read them out to you, Jim, if you like, whatever you like.
Yep. I can't see the chat window when I'm doing screen share, so
or maybe we'll say that.
Feel free to interrupt as we go, because
okay.
I always enjoy getting questions as I go. Otherwise, it's just me talking, and that's no fun. So this is the cover screen is the error message from Flickr. Flickr users are used to this and hate it. I would wish that, in fact, I've asked on the help form that Flickr change this error message, but apparently they've actually embedded a lot of panda-oriented themes within the company, and so it's difficult for them to do that. This is my contact information. Easiest way to find me is jim@jimfrazier.com, and I do encourage questions. My blog is jimfrazierphotography.blogspot.com, and there are other places. I'm on Instagram as Jim Frazier Photography, Facebook as either Jim Frazier Presents or Jim Frazier. I forgot which one. I think. In any case, feel free to contact me after the program. I have been taking pictures for almost 60 years. Sometime, or if we have time at the end, I'll tell you absolutely fascinating story about how I got started, but it's too long for right now. I have had about 4 or 5 different careers in my life, and I am now retired. I do not only wander around Cantini, take pictures and give them to them, but I also lead photo walks from April through October. And I also occasionally lead the photography class. But the key thing is, I just want you all to understand, I don't want to work anymore. I just want to bang on the drum all day. As I said, I'm not looking for photography work. I want to just sell my pictures. This is my orientation. This is my perspective. And this is one of the benefits to me of using Flickr, is that there is, I think, more of an opportunity to sell your work that you've already taken on Flickr than there may be on other services. Although I will give you tell you about a discovery I made while I was preparing this presentation, which may change my attitude a little bit about that. And so let me talk about the 3 social media platforms that we talked about. Flickr is my fave, there's no question about it. Instagram and Facebook. They each have strengths, and so I'll try to focus on the strengths. If you have a fave, that's okay. For example, I have a friend who uses Facebook almost exclusively. We met on Flickr. He was on Flickr for a long time, now exclusively uses Facebook, and I'll talk about why. There's a reason why Facebook and Instagram have a particular benefit in certain areas. A little technical history: Flickr started in 2004, before Facebook, and I joined in 2005, and Facebook became available to the public in 2006. I joined in 2010, and then Instagram became available in 2010. I joined about 2015. I'm convinced that Instagram in the early days, and the reason you have all those filters in Instagram is because back when they first came out, cell phone cameras weren't that great. And so the filters actually made the pictures less horrible because the filter actually kind of did something that, you know, kind of covered up the fact and camouflaged the fact that the pictures weren't that great. Now let's talk about making money. You need to go where your audience is, and your audience is not on Flickr. Your audience is on Facebook and Instagram. Talk a little bit about what audience is on Flickr, but it is not your audience. For most people that I've talked to, the benefit for both of these services is the ability of tagging individuals. So if you shoot, say, for example, an engagement shoot or a wedding or something like that, then you are in a position, you just tag the person, and that means their friends can see the pictures you've taken. If you tag them on either on Instagram, they don't appear in the other person's feed, but on Facebook, they theoretically can appear in the feed of their friends. That gives you an awful big audience. For example, the friend that I was talking about, he basically quit Flickr because he doesn't make a lot of money. He's one of those guys that's also trying desperately to be an amateur. But one of his main things he does is photograph Renaissance fairs. Mostly Bristol, but he has traveled to other Renaissance fairs. And he's gotten to know a lot of these Ren Fair people pretty well. And so he tags them whenever he posts a picture of them, and then their friends see them, and then more friends see them. And so he said, this is one of the problems with Flickr is you really can't, I mean, there's a way to do it, but it doesn't really accomplish much. You can tag somebody in Flickr and everybody sees it. So if you are a people photographer, Facebook to me is probably your primary bet in terms of getting an audience and getting your photography out there. I've actually seen that mentioned more than once as a marketing tip about why Facebook is important for photographers, is that simple tagging capability. Credibility. It used to be, back in the old days, you needed to have a website to have any credibility. Now I think it's not so much having a website, but having a Facebook page. And an Instagram page that gives you the credibility that people are looking for in a photographer. Probably a web page too, but it seems like they want to see Instagram probably is the one that gives you the most credibility more than anything else. If people are searching for your work, not work in general, but if they're searching for your work, they're probably going to be looking on Instagram and Flickr. Now, when it comes to making money off of Instagram, I have seen this recommendation more than once, and I kind of tested it myself. I'm a generalist. I'll photograph anything and post pictures of anything. But usually, particularly on Instagram, if you want to get a following, you have to specialize. I like to photograph trains. And so a while back, I started a Instagram account other than my main Jim Fraser photography account. I started Cool Train Pics. It's still there. I haven't figured out how to close it down yet. But within starting it up, liking a lot of people's pictures, following a lot of people and so forth, I was cruising to a very nice following if I had kept at it, because I specialized just in train pictures. Now, I only posted my good train pictures, but I specialized just in train pictures. But that turned out to be way more work to get. I'm not sure what kind of benefit out of it. And so the problem with getting a following, getting a lot of people following you is either you're famous, like a famous photographer, or you tag people, or you tag your subject, you post religiously every day, or maybe every morning and night, you post a lot. You repost other people's pictures, and then you hopefully get reposted by them. You're commenting and liking all the time. You're replying to comments. You just don't post a picture and ignore all the comments. You need to be replying and at least liking the comments. This is way too much work. And as I mentioned before to you, I don't want to work, okay? And again, I didn't see the payoff because not sure that people are going to want to buy pictures just based on what they see on Instagram. Now, Flickr. Nobody's impressed that you're on Flickr. Other photographers might be, particularly other photographers that are on Flickr. But in fact, I always love it when I come across a photographer who's on Flickr. I follow them right away because, heck, you don't see that many of them. Some people are actually afraid of Flickr. By the way, a little PowerPoint thing that I do. When you see a picture, it's usually there to remind me to tell you a story or something like that, or give a particular illustration. And that's why I took this picture at the Rockford World War II days a few years ago. And it's great. It's a great image of people that are terrified. They were supposed to be terrified that the Germans were coming in this battle. Anyway, I have talked to people and said, oh, my pictures are on Flickr. Oh, I don't belong to Flickr. Well, you don't have to belong to Flickr. You just click on the link and you can see the pictures. I don't belong to Flickr. They don't want anything to do with it. And so one of the reasons I post pictures on Facebook is simply so that the people I know who are on Facebook can see my pictures, because they don't want to go to Flickr. And so they get to at least see them on Facebook. Civilians generally tend to not be on Flickr unless they're looking for pictures to license or something like that. Last few years, I've had people who didn't even have accounts on Flickr. They just, or if they did have an account, they set it up just so they could send me a Flickr mail. And so, and I've sold a couple of pictures over the last few years just for that reason, because people got on Flickr and found it to search for a picture. And then they found it, and then they emailed me and asked to license it. Flickr is good from the standpoint of distributing pictures to people. You can
Jim,
share albums
okay.
of private link. So you have the ability, and a lot of services. But it's a way I've used it for years to show, like, for example, if I take a whole bunch of pictures at church or something like that, I will put them out in an album, send the link to somebody, and then they can download the pictures that they like. If I know they're going to use all of them, then I'll just put it in a zip file and put it on Dropbox. But if I know that they're just going to want to look at the pictures and maybe select ones that they want to use, it's easier just to make an album that's private and send it to them.
Jim, someone has a question about how much you charge. How do you decide what to charge for licensing?
I'd have to look at my website to be sure, but I think it's something like, if you want to use it just on the web, I charge $50. If you want to use it in print, I charge $200. And if you want to use it for something like an album cover or a book cover or something like that, then I charge, well, then we negotiate at that point. But I've never had that situation come up. But those are pretty close to my firm rates. And when I've talked rates with other people, it seems like those are reasonably competitive. Now, I don't know, the last picture I sold, that was, he was gonna make his own print, and he was just gonna print it for his wall, and I only charged him $50 because it's not in print in the normal sense of the word. So it would be something that he just licensed the electronic file, charged him $50, gave it to his wife for Christmas. Turned out to be a very, very good Christmas present. So if you want to be found, here's a little search engine optimization for you. I used to actually teach a course. Years ago, I taught a course on search engine optimization. First of all, your picture has to have a title that people will find. So you need to have a title, first of all, and it has to describe the picture. It has to have, it can't be an artsy, craftsy title that would be good for CACA judges. It's got to be a title that's descriptive. And then there's usually a description section in Instagram or in Instagram, there's a whole big description section, ditto for Facebook, but then you put descriptions in of the place and as much description that makes sense to you. And then you put a lot of keywords or tags in, and that makes the picture more findable by the search engines, if they are even going to, give you a shot. So I'll talk about search engines a little bit more in a few minutes. But if you're going to try to sell your pictures in a licensing, you have to use a lot of text because people, at least the technology isn't there where they can say, show me a picture of blah, blah, blah. And if you're, they just can't search the pictures based on ID. They need to see text, okay? If you want to reach a larger audience on any platform, you need to join groups and engage in discussions. Flickr has a pretty good mechanism for geotagging so that you can geotag down to a couple of feet, which is kind of cool. I like to do that, but some people, that's extra work, but it's kind of fun for me to do. So I like to do it. But you also want to join groups that are specific. For example, I joined a group today of Northern Illinois-based photographers. And so, because joining a group where people are in Europe doesn't do me a lot of good in terms of building social connections. You want to at some point in time usually meet up or maybe have dinner or coffee or something like that. It's not going to happen if they're in Europe, but you want to focus, I think, on local groups, unless you have a very specific topic. And then it might be helpful. It might be better just to know all these people all over the place. Fave, like, and comment as much as you can without. And I don't know if this is a problem on Facebook. I'm guessing it's probably a problem on Instagram. It might not be, but there's a lot of problems with Instagram in terms of spamming. But with Flickr, you get bots more than anything else. And we were talking about this, where somebody will fave 400, 500, 600 pictures within a few minutes, hoping for reciprocal faves. Now, it's not really a measurement of whether or not the person's got a good picture or not. He's just getting a lot of faves. I don't see what the point is, but there are people that do that. And so it's something, but one of the nice things about Flickr is you don't get a lot of spamming in the typical sense. You don't get, I don't know about you folks on Instagram, periodically I get a message from somebody who is looking for love, let's just put it that way, or somebody who mixes me in with a whole bunch of other people with a message. I just delete those. I don't even bother reporting them anymore, but I just delete them or block them or whatever. But you get a lot of that. You don't get very much spamming on Flickr, and they do tend to take that pretty seriously and nuke that stuff pretty fast. If you always have a report abuse button clear, pretty close, and you can usually report that. I don't get a lot of spam on Facebook, so either I'm just not spammable or it doesn't happen very much, but I don't see a lot of spam on Facebook. I see a lot of people that their accounts are getting hijacked, but I don't see a lot of spamming. Follow people who pictures you want to see, because at least you're going to be making genuine comments. Flickr does provide you with the ability of following people, but then filtering out everybody and just seeing a smaller subset of pictures that are for people who you really do want to see. Keywords, you should always be including keywords like locations, subject, the species for garden club, species, and so forth. I'm sure this is a tip that all of you know, but whenever I'm at Cantini or any garden, but usually at Cantini, I will always photograph the information plaque about what the flower or plant is immediately after I photograph the flower or plant, so that I've got all that information so I can include it in my description and keywords and so forth. Some people like to include technical information like the type of camera that's used, the monochrome, sepia, that kind of stuff, and identification information. So for example, this is a picture I took, Cantini's now having cruise nights, and a lot of my pictures are from Cantini. I will just warn you about that. And so these are the tags that I added to Flickr for this particular thing. Now that looks like a lot of work, but over the years, I've built up an Excel spreadsheet of tags, keywords. In Flickr parlance, it's keywords. And so I can basically create a keyword, a picture, usually in 5 or 10 minutes at the most. And so, for example, if I've got Cantini, I've got a whole long stretch of words separated by commas, and I just copy them into the keyword section of Lightroom, and then the keywords from Lightroom then transfer over to Flickr. It's relatively easy, but I get a lot of views every day, and I'm pretty sure at some of these older pictures, it's because I've just got all these keywords floating around. Now let's talk about finding pictures on the internet. As we were talking about before the meeting, I used to make, if I had put effort into it, I could probably have made a living just licensing pictures off of people licensing, finding my pictures and licensing them. That's because Google would really use Flickr's database. They would basically interface with Flickr. Google doesn't do that anymore, or they do it to a very limited extent. I Googled the name Robert Wadlow, who I'll explain in a second, but Robert Wadlow, I Googled, and then I looked at the image results. As you can see, that's the results on Google. Not great. DuckDuckGo, which is Bing, basically, except that DuckDuckGo doesn't collect any information about you, so that's my go-to search engine. They provide a lot of information on Flickr. They hit Flickr a lot, okay? Facebook, not so much. Pinterest. I was surprised by the number of hits on Pinterest, which makes me think maybe I should be reevaluating the fact that I've been ignoring Pinterest for the last gazillion years. Pinterest might be a way, I have to look and see how much work I'm going to have to do, but it might be a way for me to find another place to sell pictures. Finally, if you just search on Flickr, this is my picture that shows up on Flickr. It's the second picture out of 628 pictures. It's the second one that shows up. This is a life-size picture. This is a life-size statue of Robert Wadlow. Robert Wadlow was the tallest man who has ever lived, period. Documented anyway. There could have been somebody in ancient times, but in terms of documentation, Robert Wadlow is the tallest man who ever lived. And he grew up in the town that was right next door to where I grew up, in Alton, Illinois. Kate and I were driving through Alton on a periodic visit to my own, Alton is right outside of St. Louis on the Illinois side of the river. And we happened to notice the statue, and I went up and we took a picture. Robert, that is my most viewed picture ever on Flickr. It has gotten, I think, let's look, yep, 97,000 views on Flickr. Does anybody here on Flickr have anything close to 97,000 views? Why? Because this picture used to show up on the first or second line of the image results on Google. The picture got used on Wikipedia, a couple of other places. That's why I put an obnoxious watermark on it, because it kept getting stolen. So I thought, well, I'm going to reload it with a watermark so that it wasn't quite so easily, or that, it was a little bit harder to rip off, or at least I was going to get credit. But I think it was attractive to people because at the time, the only pictures that were showing up were vintage pictures, black and white pictures. This was a color picture showing two people next to a statue that's life-size of Robert Wadlow. He, by the way, when he died, he was 8 feet, 11 inches plus tall. He was just short of 9 feet tall. He died when he was 22 years old of an infection in 1940 because he wore leg braces, and one of the braces irritated his ankle. It infected and he died. Very sad story. But he is the local favorite son for Alton, Illinois. But it shows a life-size scale, and I think that was what made the picture attractive. Now there's lots of pictures of people doing the exact same thing that Kate and I were doing, and so it doesn't get that much attention anymore. Certainly it doesn't get any attention because Google quit indexing. And in fact, I discovered one day, I was thinking, I could always count on this picture getting 30 or 40 views a day. And I thought, well, Google's doing its job. And then at some point in time, I was getting 1 view, 2 views a day. I thought, what the heck? And I looked and Google didn't index it anymore. It didn't index very little from Flickr. So you have to basically not count on Google to get you views. Groups. Flickr, there's no limit on the number of pictures, number of groups a picture can be in unless the group is imposed. Facebook, some groups actually require that the picture be uploaded specifically to that group, not just a picture you share from your main page, but you have to upload it to that group. I'm not interested in that. Discussions, they both have discussions. There are some groups on Flickr that are very discussion heavy. There are some groups on Facebook that are very discussion heavy. I don't know if there's any real benefit to either platform that way. Some groups are very active, some are zombies. We've talked about that before. Zombie groups are groups where it keeps going, but there's no moderator anymore. The moderator has abandoned Flickr or abandoned Facebook, or they've died. And so the group keeps going, but it can be a problem. One of the things I noticed on Facebook is the comments are very spammy, at least in a couple of groups that I belong to. And some groups, particularly on Flickr, are intended to get you maximum exposure, get you a lot of likes. There are a couple of groups that are oriented specifically for critiquing. And the critiquing is not along the lines of, here's this picture of mine, tell me what you think, which usually means, tell me that you like it. That's usually when somebody asks for a critique, that seems to be what they're really asking for. The critiques, at least on Flickr, can be really mean, can be just short of, sometimes it can be insulting, but you can get critiques if you want critiques. Now, from a strictly Flickr perspective, Flickr is optimized for looking at pictures. The discussions are almost an add-on. The groups are there are discussions in the groups, but Flickr's whole interface is about pictures. Facebook, pictures, but pictures and text and a whole bunch of stuff. Flickr, the group activity, for example, in Facebook, all those posts going into the various groups you belong to show up in your feed. With Flickr, the group feed doesn't show up in the group activity doesn't show up in your feed. It does a little bit on the Flickr phone app, but not on the web, not on the web. There are moderation tools for offensive content that people use on Facebook. Flickr doesn't seem to care too much about that. I've never seen anybody get punished by Flickr for meanness or being a jerk or anything like that. Then there are other social media tools on Facebook that you don't get on Flickr, or if they're there. Now, let's talk about groups on Instagram. Oh, I forgot. There are no groups on Instagram. There's keywords or tags, and you can get groups kind of forming around a tag, but there's no group functionality on Instagram. File sizes, we were talking about this before. The largest file size that you can upload to Flickr is 2048 pixels wide. On Instagram, it's 1080. On Flickr, for all practical purposes, there is no maximum file size. You can use Flickr as your backup. It's not a very elegant method for backing up, but you can use Flickr as your backup. Now I don't, because I scale my pictures down to about 1,388 pixels across. And I've got a 45 megapixel camera. So obviously it's not practical, but just to give you an example, I do have a 45 megapixel camera. In fact, the background on this particular picture is of a tree stump. And I uploaded the full 45 megapixel JPEG file to Flickr because I wanted people to be able to look down and count rings if they wanted to do that and so forth. And that picture was 52 megabytes. And Flickr does impose a limit of 200 megabytes. So you've got some room to maneuver there. All right. Flickr also only displays pictures. There's a couple of situations you have to look for them, but in most cases, Flickr will display the image in the ratio that you uploaded. Picture of the Chevrolet emblem. I like to photograph classic car emblems and hood ornaments. That's a really long picture. Flickr displays that as is, doesn't make it square. This is the way you see it displayed on Facebook, along with a whole bunch of other memes that I posted. I like to post memes on Facebook. By the way, Flickr tends to be a meme-free zone. You don't see a lot of memes popping up. Advertising, Facebook and Instagram. If you use those services, advertising is probably something you hate. Not on Flickr, because if you buy a pro account, there is no advertising. Zero, zip, nada, nothing. Okay, now, pro account costs 60 bucks. I would pay 60 bucks to get Facebook without advertising. Okay, it just annoys the heck out of me. I see the same ads all the time. I just let the same ad keep popping up because I figure, well, if I tell Facebook I don't want to see this one anymore, then they're just going to put another one up. It's not going to really solve the problem. So at least with this one, I recognize the picture. I can scroll right past it. I don't have to read it or anything. But there isn't a fee option for Instagram and Facebook. That's one of the coolest things about Flickr is that you are not the customer, okay? Or let's put it this way, you're not the product on Flickr, okay? You are the customer, all right? The saying is that if the social media is free, that means that you're the product, not the customer. Okay, sharing, Facebook, it's easy to share pictures. You can adjust privacy settings so they can't be, and it's reasonably granular, so I will give Facebook points for that. Instagram, there's a couple of applications out there where you can repost Instagram pictures pretty easily, and there really isn't any granular privacy. You either are private or you're public, and that's it. And but Facebook or Flickr has a lot of granularity to the privacy settings as well. In addition, you're not supposed to, people do, but you can actually get your service terminated if you do nothing but post other people's content. That's why there's not a lot of memes on Flickr, because memes usually come from somebody else, and that's not welcome on Flickr. Flickr expects you to be posting your own pictures, other people's pictures. And so the terms of service don't allow you to post other people's stuff, and they do enforce that periodically. I don't think anything is enforced absolutely on Flickr, but that's one that I rarely, once in a while you see it, but people do post other people's pictures, but it's not very often. You can share pictures on Flickr, but it's really complicated, and you can set it up so that people can't share your pictures at all, which I have done in certain situations. For example, you can set these settings. You can download your pictures, people you follow. Not everybody, just people you follow. Who allow others to share your stuff? No, and these are all settings that I can update, okay? Some people like to hide their EXIF data, and frankly, it's very handy. So I wish people wouldn't hide it, but you have that option. You can also hide things like your email address, your real name, and so forth. You can also edit how and who can see your pictures, and you can edit not only as a default when you're uploading, but also as on an individual basis as well. Censorship, Flickr, Facebook, and Instagram. Depending on your political views, there may be too much censorship. There may not be enough. In terms of nudity, which may be something you care or don't care about, but Flickr or Facebook and Instagram pretty much prohibit nudity. Flickr, there are not much in the way of rules about censorship. I've never heard of anybody being censored in terms of content. There are some rules in the terms of service, but I've just never heard of anybody having those being censored because of that. You have filters. For example, all of the pictures I post, I'm going to turn my light on here because it's getting dark and most of my light comes from a window. All of my pictures that I post are safe, which means they're safe for a worldwide audience. It's safe for the office and so forth. These are the criteria that Flickr uses. Maybe a little nudity, but that's about it, and restricted as full frontal and porn. Basically, it's porn. You're supposed to, when you upload pictures, tell Facebook what the picture's content is. That allows people to say, no, I don't want to see that stuff. Now, for example, I have my filter set to, I'll see anything, I don't care. But I set it tonight, just before I started, I set the content filter for safe. In the event that I went live on and started showing you my actual live Flickr screen, I didn't want to have something inappropriate pop up that you guys probably would not want to see or might be uncomfortable with. So I changed it all to safe just for that reason. But but you have that option. So you can say, I want to have safe search on, I want to see, I'm okay with moderate stuff and I don't want to see any stuff. There is a lot of dirty stuff on Flickr if you want to see it, but it's usually pretty hidden by filters and so forth. Why I like Flickr, I may have missed something, so if somebody notes something that I have missed or am ignoring Facebook or Instagram, wonderful, please let me know. I still am discovering cool things about Flickr that I haven't, and I've been using it since 2005. You can search by, and you can search by keywords and description in Facebook, and you can search groups, you can search for people. You can do all this stuff in Facebook and Flickr. It's just that it seems to work more elegantly to me on Flickr. To give you an example about this, I was on a Zoom call. I belong to a railroad club at the, I live over a Del Webb community in Elgin. And we were on Zooming, and most of the guys in this railroad club are modelers, and I'm not the slightest bit interested in modeling. But I like to photograph trains, so I joined the group. And so I'm known as the one guy who doesn't model, but I take pictures. And so this one guy said, you know, has anybody ever seen that shed by the right of way in Burlington? I have got this desire to model it. And so I went out while we're on Zoom and Googled Burlington shed. And let's see, what did I think my, I see. Okay, let me just back up here. I can't see you guys probably can see it, but let me see. I can't. The toolbar is covering up the top of the screen for me, so I can't see the search terms. But it was Burlington shed, and so I got those 3 pictures, and then so I just immediately shared the screen, and I popped this one. He had literally not finished his sentence and I showed this screen to the group. It was so cool. I mean, it's just being able to pull up a picture that fast, and I can do it similarly fast on the Flickr app on my phone, limited only by the speed of me typing. And so the app and the web interface facilitate very, very quick searches. And what I can't see, maybe you can see, is that this is the picture, and it was perfect, exactly what he wanted. It was just rusty. Other than that, exactly what he wanted. But you'll notice that in the previous search result, I had a lock from another railroad shed that I had. That was along the Burlington Northern Santa Fe. So it got picked up in the search. Just out of curiosity, you can use Boolean logic with Flickr that you cannot use on Instagram or on Facebook. And so I put shed Burlington minus lock. And that's what the results I got. The lock was eliminated. So you can use minuses in your search terms, which makes it really convenient. I'm not sure if you can do a lot more than a minus, but the minus in and of itself is very handy. You can also restrict your searches by whether or not it's public domain or whether or not there's a Creative Commons license. Creative Commons license, if you're not familiar with it, is something that you can sign up for that lets people use your picture subject to certain terms. And there's like 5 or 6 different combinations of terms. And so all of the pictures that I use in this program are mine. But every once in a while, if I'm preparing a presentation and I don't have a picture of a particular thing, then I'll just look for a picture of that thing using a Creative Commons license, and I find it. And all I have to do in most cases is put the name of the photographer at the bottom, and we're good. With Flickr, depending on what privacy settings the photographer has, you can simply right-click and copy the picture, particularly if you're illustrating a PowerPoint presentation. For example, I wanted a picture of shoes and leaves because in the olden days, some of you who have been on Flickr for a long time may remember, there was a trend that was embarrassing where people, mostly women, would take a selfie looking down at their feet, showing off their shoes and whatever. It was weird. And so around that time, I thought, I'm going to take a picture too. And so I was walking along a trail. It's an old railroad right away. And so I put the railroad, the rail, the shoes, and the leaves all in the same picture. And I wanted to find it to illustrate this point. So I just searched for shoes, leaves, and up it popped. Okay. By the way, the search results will show you your pictures first, then people you follow next, and then it'll show you everybody's pictures. That's one of the neat things about viewing lots of pictures. Because Flickr is set up to view pictures, you can see lots of pictures. And you can either spot pictures that you want to be inspired by, or you can spot pictures that you say, oh, that's really an overdone picture. Maybe I should think about something else. Flickr, if you ask Flickr to see anything, particularly in groups, I moderate one very big Nikon group, and it has 500 to 800 pictures a day posted. And so I minimize every page of pictures is about 100 pages, 13 rows down. And so I go through it and pick pictures out that interest me, and I look at them, mostly to screen out a couple of topics that the administrator says are verboten, but also to look and see if they use Nikon cameras. And so, which is tedious, but it also lets me see a real wide sampling of the kinds of things people are taking pictures of. Not necessarily good pictures, but it's interesting to see just what people are taking pictures of. For example, birds. lots and lots and lots of pictures of birds. You don't even see it on this particular one, but there are a lot of pictures of birds. It's just amazing. And so, but again, notice that what you're seeing isn't a square. You're seeing the picture as it was formatted by the photographer. And you can find new subjects. For example, there's several people that post a lot of ships are in this group. And I thought, you know, I like ships. And so, and I've taken a couple of pictures of ships in my travels. And so these two, by the way, are mine. This, by the way, all of those coal trains that you see sitting at the grade crossing are headed for coal pier number 8. If they're not going to a power station someplace east of here, they're going to Norfolk, Virginia to load our coal ships to take coal to various other places in the world. And they're all going to coal pier number 6. But most of them are going to power stations, but this is also where they're going. It's amazing to me. They go from Wyoming all the way across the country to Norfolk, Virginia. But anyway, if you are looking at a lot of pictures, you can find new people to follow. I've just started following people who take boat pictures and also aircraft pictures. Particularly, there's a group on Flickr for World War II era bombers. And I find that particular type of airplane very interesting, particularly B-17s. And so it's actually opened up more horizons for me, shall we say. Also, pictures have a lot of information on them. This is a picture I took of Marina City a few years ago. I'm going to just advance through the picture so you can see the picture. This is, first of all, you get the picture. Then as you scroll down, and by the way, I'm not going to go live until the end when I start, because Carlos and I discovered that for me, at least on my computer, to flip back and forth between live and PowerPoint is a little tedious. And so in the interest of speed, I will and I did screenshots in case there was a disaster, not a bad thought. Anyway, there's a description here that I post on my pictures. I always post it. Copyright information, the picture number that I've assigned it within Lightroom, that all comes through, the date, links if there are any, where it was, and so forth. And XF data gets captured as well if you choose to let Flickr show it. For example, the camera, the lens, and the f-stops and so forth. And then it'll show the groups that I've dropped it into, the albums that I've dropped it into, galleries that somebody has added it to, and then the tags. For some reason, my tags, I took the tags off. Sometimes when I get pictures that get a lot of hits, I get nervous about the picture getting stolen. And so I'll actually remove most of the tags just to to reduce the amount of searching, because I get nervous about a picture that's getting, how many did this one get? I don't remember seeing it. This picture has gotten tens of thousands of views. And so I just got nervous about that. So sometimes I'll take the tags off. You can put 75 keywords on a picture. Plus, of course, you can put a lot of words in the description. There's no limitation on that. I started using Lightroom in 2012. I didn't start using Lightroom's keywording feature until a couple of years ago. Flickr has been my catalog. And if I want to find a picture, I just go out to Flickr and I just search that way, and I find it very quickly. Lightroom does let you nest keywords. Flickr, using the Excel spreadsheet that I have, lets me nest keywords too. So even today, my Robert Wadlow picture still gets a couple of views a day just because of the keywords that I have on it. Albums, you can create a lot of albums. Another key benefit of Flickr over Facebook is that you can have a picture in as many albums as you want. As near as I can tell, you can only have a picture in one album on Facebook, but you can have a picture in 100 albums. If you have 100 albums, you can have it in a 200, you can have it in 300. There's probably some numeric limitation, but I've never hit it yet. Usually I have my pictures in anywhere from 10 to 20 albums. And you can have your albums organized into collections and collections organized into other collections. We can do a lot of.
Sorry.
That's okay. That's okay.
I accidentally hit mute you.
That's okay.
Mute myself.
It tells me so, and it says, "Do you want to unmute?" It's actually one of the things that I like to do on Flickr is if I have nothing else to do, and I'm retired, I'm not working, so I have frequently periods where I have nothing else to do. I'll just reorganize and organize, and I like to think of it as gardening in my my Flickr garden. So you can add pictures to a lot of different groups. There's no limitation. I've seen pictures that have been in 200 groups, obviously trying to get a lot of exposure. And active discussions on the groups really depends on the group. As I said, I like to organize in my photographic garden. This is the organizing tool. As you can see, this is out where I'm organizing my albums, and I have it set up into various categories. Within these categories, I've had either collections, which are collections of albums, or albums. You can just go crazy with the organizing. Again, I have gone crazy with the organizing, but that's one of the things I get out of Flickr is just going nuts organizing. Facebook would never give me that organizing fix that I like. I don't organize things in real life, but if it's just a matter of moving and dropping the mouse key, I can do that all day. That doesn't require me to get my hands dirty. You can also organize, and as I said before, you can geotag. And so this is Cantini. As you can see, I've taken a lot of pictures at Cantini. This is the first of 3 pages of pictures that I've taken at Cantini. Greenhouse is back there. I've taken a lot of pictures at the greenhouse. Formal garden is here. I've taken a lot of pictures there. I have taken quite a few Revolutionary War stuff. It's held either here or here, and you can see I've taken a lot of pictures there. So the map feature is kind of fun. You can organize, again, I can't see the top, so I don't know what this is. I'll just move on. You also can get statistics, which I don't think anybody else gives you. This isn't, a lot of people don't care about this, but it's there. It's kind of fun to look at once in a while. This shows you on, I don't know what picture I was looking at when I saw this. But anyway, this shows you the number of views. It gives you how many views the picture gets every day. And so it can be either weird or it can be, it doesn't have to be something you fixate on, but it's kind of fun. For example, my Robert Wadlow picture is 97,000 views. My first sunset in Sanibel Island that I took, it's just a picture of a sunset, but it got picked up by Flickr's Explore function, which is where they highlight 500 pictures a day. And it just went nuts. The next picture is a picture of magnolias at the mansion at Cantini. It's not a very good picture, but it got picked up. The balconies picture from Marina City, almost 30,000 views. So it's just interesting to see that stuff. And you also have sources, search engines, not a lot, but you do get some. And some other miscellaneous things that I like about Flickr. There's no restrictions on storage. Again, if you're a pro member, you can store it in JPEG, PNG, or GIF. PNG is nice, of course, because it's not compressed. The problem with PNG is that you probably will start smacking up against that size limit. Another thing that I like is that Flickr doesn't control your feed. You see pictures in the chronological order they were posted. Unlike Instagram, unlike Facebook, who show you the pictures or the material that they think you should see. Flickr doesn't do that. you see the pictures of the people that you want to see in the order they've posted them. I love that. Minor point, you don't have to put a pound sign in front of the keywords. Just put the keywords in a Flickr. Mentioned geotagging. You don't see many memes or political posts, but that again depends on who you follow.
Yeah, Jim, yes.
Yes.
That's one thing that I have a question about, because I noticed this after, years of using Flickr. I wanted to reorder them, not in the order they were uploaded. I wanted to show them in best shot and less, not quite as good, all the way down, my best shots in the front. So I discovered that if you edit the date uploaded,
Right.
then
right.
it shows as date uploaded. So you go to the organizer function, you go to batch organize, you select the photo, and then you double click on it to bring up the window, and then you change the date uploaded. The date taken remains the same, but
Right.
you can actually edit date uploaded. So you go to an earlier date, it moves it back in the line, or down, further down to page 2 to page 3, or you move it up by bringing it closer to the present. So do you ever do that, or?
I don't do that. The closest I'll get to doing that is sometimes I'll have a picture that I do this a lot. I call them redos, spelled R-E-D-U-X. And I'll find a picture that I posted years ago. In fact, I just posted one yesterday. You may have seen it, the blue roof barn. And I think I took the picture in 2006, and I tripped across it the other day, and I thought, I could do something with that. And so I'll redo a picture and re-edit it, and then I'll post it in the top of my feed. If I wanted to do what you wanted to do, Carlos, I would probably create an album and put pictures in that album, and then within an album, you can reorder just by dragging and dropping. So you don't have to go in and change dates and so forth. But if you actually want to adjust your photo, by the way, folks, Flickr calls it a photo stream. It's all your pictures just in what you've uploaded, they call it a photo stream. I've done that once or twice to bring a picture forward, but since I discovered that since my skills with Lightroom and Photoshop have gotten better over the years, I'd rather just try to re-edit it and see if I can either make a more successful picture or duplicate the success I had with the original picture. So that tends to be what I do. So particularly during the plague, for example, I really ran out of pictures. And so I was doing a lot of redos. And so now that things are opening up and I can go to car shows and events and so forth, I'm taking more pictures. So I don't have to redo as much, but I still like to redo just because it's kind of fun to see if I can, if I can improve upon the picture using these fabulous Lightroom editing skills that I've acquired by watching all these different programs. Finally, one of the things that's nice is people are frustrated by getting your picture into Instagram. But what I discovered, actually, somebody told me about this, and that is that if you upload your picture to Flickr first, then the Flickr app lets you share it directly to Instagram. And so lets me, I don't think anybody else can do it, but I can share it. And so it makes it very easy for me to get the picture over onto my cell phone because I just use the Flickr app, press that little share icon, and it goes over to Instagram and add in some text information, some keywords, and we're good to go. So that's kind of a nice little feature too. If I was going to change, by the way, if you haven't figured it out, we're close to the end, so don't panic. If I was going to change anything, I would like to be able to save comments because that's one of the things that's nice about Facebook is if somebody says nice shot, I can acknowledge it by liking it. You can't do that in Flickr without creating another comment. One of the things that would be interesting, and this is used on Reddit, is being able to downvote a picture. In other words, you have the ability, of course, of faving pictures, but you also have the ability of downvoting a picture. And I think that's an interesting, it would be interesting to see how pictures that are highly faved now would survive the ability to be downvoted. It would be interesting to see. Like to see a little bit more control over the people using bots and so forth. We were talking earlier about transitioning zombie groups and letting other people take over and so forth. This is something I'm not sure about. And in fact, I was experimenting today with it, and I'm not sure, I'm pretty sure I'm not sure I want to do this, but Flickr doesn't include, at least on the web version, Flickr doesn't include group activity. All you see are the pictures that the people you follow have posted. That's it. Nothing else, just pictures. There is a tool that allows you to look at, see who's posted to groups that you're participate in, but there is no, but you can't, it doesn't impinge on your enjoying the pictures from your contacts. The Flickr app does a limited amount of that. Doesn't do it for all the groups, but, and I'm not sure what the algorithm is that they use, but I've noticed that in the Flickr app, some of the groups do pop up with activity in that group. It may be the groups, I haven't really paid a lot of attention to it. It may be the groups that I'm a moderator of as opposed to just all groups. And the last thing is that Flickr does some sharpening for the reduced size pictures, not the original that is saved, but when they reduce the picture size to what you would typically see in the feed, they sharpen the picture. And I take, for whatever reason, I seem to have a lot of pictures of trees and so forth, particularly in the winter when there's just twigs, and those things tend to get over sharpened real fast. And so I solved that problem by simply telling Lightroom not to sharpen the output for this particular picture. If when I uploaded it to Flickr, I see that it was over sharpened. So it's kind of like I just replaced the picture once I see that that's happening. In conclusion, if you want to find photography work, which I don't, then Facebook and Instagram are the places to be. If you want to license your work, I think Flickr and Instagram are probably the places to be. If you want to play in your photographic garden, then I think Flickr is the place to be. And that's what I like to do. That concludes my portion of the program. I will now stop sharing the screen and I will let Carlos take over.
Okay. Did you want to show?
I'll take questions. Anybody want to ask, feel free.
Did you want to show any shots from your browser now, or are you okay?
No, unless a question comes up, then I'll show something. But other than that, we'll just go with any questions.
I have a question.
Okay.
Done.
So sometimes on Flickr, I see people with pretty miserable photos that have 400 or 500 faves, and they have also many thousands of followers. And I tried for a while to get followers, and doing it organically, like by going, oh, I like his pictures, I'll follow him, still only get hundreds. I don't know how they did it, or whether that was
they're using the bots. They're using the bots. Or, as I said, I talked about this one friend of mine who just spends a lot of time on Flickr, but I think most people probably are just using bots. And
I feel like there was some rule change of 4 or 5 years ago that made it harder to get those.
Flickr has a terms of service rule. In the terms of service, it says you cannot excessively fave. But Flickr doesn't spend a lot of time enforcing their terms of service. And as we talked about before, I think Flickr has 3 or 4 people working for them. And so, I mean, obviously it's more than that, but they don't have a lot of staff to work on things like enforcing terms of service. And they're perfect. I think part of the reason is that they do have, you can get a free account on Flickr and then you'll see advertising. And I think they don't mind the bots because the bots mean engagement, which means people viewing pictures, which means people seeing advertising. So I think that at least this is one of the theories that I actually joined a group that was an anti-bot group. It was a group just for identifying and tarring and feathering bots. And I joined more out of curiosity than anything else, because I'm not in favor of tarring and feathering. But that's one of the theories that has been promoted pretty regularly, is that they're just looking for engagement from the free users because that's selling advertising. The pro users, we just paid our $60 and we don't get any advertising at all. So we just have to put up with the bots. As I said before, is when I find somebody who's using a bot, and it's usually pretty easy to spot because they've saved more than one of your pictures in succession. And then I look at their pictures, and as you say, they're getting hundreds of faves over terrible pictures. Okay. Then I just block them, and they're gone from my world. They can't fave anymore on my pictures. They can't comment. They can see them, but they can't do anything with them. And if they followed me, they're unfollowed. And so they can't, that's done. Since my pictures are public, they can still look at them, but they'd have to find them again. So, but that's the way that I have cleaned up my feed dramatically since I took the aggressive step of just blocking them, which no big deal. So
Interesting. Anybody else questions? I actually have something related to what I was asking before, where I typically post my, flickr.com/my username, and that gets them to my photo stream. But you're saying if I wanted to create an album, is that the right or
yeah, let me share and I'll show you.
Okay, then I can post just that album with my best shots up top.
Right. Well, that's what I've done here in my portfolio. I've got my best pictures ever. Okay. And that's the organizing view where I can move pictures around and so forth.
And so what do you post? What's the URL that you post?
Okay, then I open up the album page. Okay. And up there at the top.
Oh, it's the whole long number.
The URL for the album.
Okay.
And people can
Wait,
see.
do you need to do the share?
No, if it's not, if you only have to worry about the share thing if you have private pictures in the album and you want them to see the private pictures.
I had trouble posting that other link. It didn't seem to work.
That probably because your privacy settings aren't showing anything.
Yeah, I was posting to Facebook and it just didn't work if I used that other album, but if I used the share, then they could see it.
Oh,
and they weren't private.
It may be I've done this a lot and it works fine. And so it may be that you have some private pictures mixed in there, or it may just be a Facebook thing. Facebook doesn't like it when you share URLs from other sources like Flickr. I've noticed for a while there, I was posting just the URL of my picture to Facebook and not the actual picture to Facebook. And I was finding that Facebook would throttle the views, would not show when I post a picture on Facebook, because I don't have that many people that follow me anymore. I've cleaned up that list. But I usually get on a good picture, I'll get somewhere between 10 and 15 likes over the course of a couple of weeks, which is not much. But then again, I have less than 100 followers. But if I posted even a real good picture, it'll get maybe 1 or 2 likes. So, and I have heard that Facebook throttles the views, how many people can see your post if you are linking to some other service. Okay. And so I just started posting the actual picture to Facebook and solved the problem. So it may be that, there may be some other problem, is that if you just do this, maybe they don't like that at all. I don't know. So let me just try this just to see if it works. Now, see if I can go to Facebook. Can you guys see Facebook?
Yeah, we do.
All right. So I'll just post. Okay.
Yep, that's good. And mine was a comment to somebody else's post, so I don't know. We can go on.
Yeah. It may be a comment, might not work.
Yeah.
Now, it'll be interesting. I'm just going to leave this here to see if anybody, this is my best pictures as far as I'm concerned. My favorite all-time pictures. It'll be interesting to see if anybody even comments on it or even likes it.
Right.
Because Facebook doesn't like that when I do that. So,
Yeah, I appreciate that's a thanks for this explanation, because that is a way that I can do it. Now, that whole long URL does not look good on a business card,
and then you can use that share function, which gives you a shorter one.
And that gives you a shorter one. Okay, that might be the way to go.
Let me go back
I've spent hours and days changing the dates, the uploading date.
Oh yeah. So the album, okay, it's not letting me back up. That's interesting.
You're in a different tab, maybe.
Oh, was it a different tab? Okay, all right. I'm getting lost here. See, I can't see the tabs because the screen is in the way.
Oh, we'll move left. Right. Keep clicking right, or move right a little bit.
Can you see your mouse?
I can see my mouse, but the screen that is at the top.
Well, just move over an inch to the right. No, that's too far.
No, that's Facebook.
That's too far. Move half the distance back.
You know what? I can just get there a different way. This is my blog, which basically links to all my Flickr pictures. And so this is the bio that I had sent you earlier. And so I can get there by just going here and saying, all my pictures are on Flickr. So I'm back in Flickr. This is the blue. I was talking about redoing pictures. This is a picture that I redid from a picture from 2005. This is the original picture. And I just decided to see if I could pimp it up a little bit. And so I lightened it up, kept the blue, but I wanted to see the barn a little brighter and eliminate the pole that was hanging off on the side. So it was just an interesting experiment, chance to try doing a slightly better job. I like this picture better. Obviously, I wouldn't have posted otherwise. And it's doing okay. My usual rule of thumb is after a day, if I've gotten 20 faves, then I'm pretty happy with the results. So.
Well, Jim, I have learned a lot about, I don't typically use tags in Flickr or create albums.
To give you an example of that picture, here's the tags that I added to it.
Yeah, I see I'm missing out on having people find my stuff. What I noticed is it of course, it takes my caption and it takes the album that it was in, the name of the album that it was in, and it puts it out there as a tag. But unless I manually add tags, that's all you get.
And tagging can be tedious. I know that. I just have developed, and if you want to talk offline, I can share some thoughts about the Excel spreadsheet that I'll go with Lightroom. You can nest tags. You can have a hierarchy of tags in Lightroom, which accomplishes the same thing. I don't use that because over the years, I've built up this Excel spreadsheet of all of my tags. And so I just copy the whole list of tags and copy it, paste it right into the tags. I used to paste them into the tags here on Flickr, and now I just paste them into Lightroom. That way I've got the tags in Lightroom, so I can search in Lightroom as well as I can search on Flickr. But I've got, since 2005, I've got 16 years of keywords in Flickr, so I can't give that up. So,
All right. Any other questions?
I do have another one, unless someone else has one.
Go for it. You're it.
So one of my problems with Flickr is the photo stream, which has everything, right?
right.
And
Well,
I
no,
take
the photo stream is all of the pictures that you've posted, right?
right. So I take pictures that are pictorial, that are pretty, and I have a bunch of pictures of rocks. And some of those are pretty, but I'd kind of like to have both there, but not necessarily have all the rocks in the photo stream. But there's no way to prevent that, right?
You can make the picture private.
Yeah, but that would that's not
But
the
then
point.
then you can put them, because I've got the same thing. I'll show you my photo stream.
Well, I don't really want it private, so without another account, I think I'm.
Well, what I did here, for example, is I like to take pictures of white walls. Okay. Now, the walls have to have some texture, have something interesting going on. But I like to take pictures of white walls. Why? Because back when I was working for a living, making presentations, and I was developing PowerPoint presentations, a white wall is a great background for just a PowerPoint slide that's just text. In fact, if you hadn't noticed on the slides that I was using in the presentation, if you watch the video, you'll see I used textured white walls. Anytime there wasn't a picture I used a textured white wall. And that just came out of back when I was working for a living doing presentations. And so, but I discovered that one of the things about taking photographs of white walls is no matter where you are, you can always find a white wall to take a picture of. So if you're saying, what do I take a picture of? I need to push the shutter button. I got to take a picture of something. You can find a white wall and you're good to go. So, but I don't put a lot of them in. I kind of sparingly put them in so that they don't clutter up my photo stream. And here's the side benefit. Anybody that faves this picture, it's a test picture, because if I get faves on this picture, that's usually one of those guys using a bot.
It's not that bad. I don't know if I agree.
Well,
It's
it
got
did get
more character than you give it. But
it did get 3
I
faves.
understand what you're saying.
It did get, but sometimes in a not, I agree, it's not that bad. As an abstract picture, it's kind of interesting. And it did get 3 faves, and it's gotten 563 views since I think I posted it, when did I post it? I posted it at the beginning of June. So, but when I got a fave on this picture, I checked to see if the person who faved it was using a bot. I looked to see if this picture stayed, if he had a lot of faves on his pictures. I looked to see if this picture stayed high in his faves for a while and so forth. And those 3 people passed the test. Okay. So, but it's a way, when you post a picture like that, you can use it as a way of filtering out the bots. On the other hand, if you just want faves, the bots are nice because they will pump up your faves. So, and that's about the only bad thing that I really have an annoyance about with Flickr is the bot situation. So, but you can solve that problem just by blocking people once you know what they're doing.
Okay. Jim, thank you so much. I've learned a lot tonight.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Yeah, I appreciate your doing all the legwork to figure this stuff out and teach us how to use these things in a more intelligent way.
If anybody has any questions, just let me know.
All righty. Okay. Hey, this is the last meeting of the season. So I will see you guys that we're going to have a shoot around in July, third Thursday of July at the Garden. And then we're going to have the shoot around at the 18th Street Bridge in August. So I hope to see you all there, and you can check all the information on our website, on our homepage, or on the calendar. And this presentation will be up on our YouTube page, which you can get to from our homepage at gardenphoto.org. All right, Jim, again, thank you so much. I really, really appreciate it. And very informative. Thank you. All right. See you guys in July. Bye.